Hi everyone, welcome. So December is usually a quiet month with a very few launches, but this year the developer of Coastal Cabana EC has decided to keep both buyers and agents very busy. So Coastal Cabana EC will open for preview on the 6th of December, and the preview will run all the way until the 21st of December, just before Christmas. So this EC is special because the booking day is 1 month after the preview period, when usually it's only a few days after. Later on, I'll explain why this is a big advantage for second-timer buyers, because for this EC, there will be no second-timer quota at all, which is a real game changer. As always, my goal is to provide you with useful and practical content, so if you find this useful, do consider subscribing. And if you have questions, feel free to WhatsApp me via the QR code on the screen. So now, let's address the big question many EC buyers are asking. So most of you already know that March or April next year, there will be an EC launch at Tampines Street 95, which is commonly referred to as Rivelle EC. So a lot of my clients have been asking me, so should I wait for Rivelle EC instead, or skip Coastal Cabana altogether? So this is especially common among those who love Tampines. After all, it's closer to the city, it's closer to Tampines West MRT, and it's also rare nowadays to have an EC so close to the MRT. It's also nearer to Tampines Central, which is a very established, mature town. So the question becomes, should you wait for Rivelle EC and skip Coastal Cabana altogether? So we'll talk about this in detail at the end of this video, so do stay tuned. So let me first run through what we'll be covering today. So we'll start first with a quick introduction on ECs and how you can qualify for one. And I'll also be sharing on some case studies on the affordability, so you can see how a typical HDB upgrader or first-timer might finance in EC. So next, we'll look at Coastal Cabana's location, and how it stands out compared to many other EC sites. So because most of the other ECs tend to be in more ulu areas, but this project is surrounded by amenities just within a 5-minute walk. And we'll then move on to the project fact sheet, followed by the price guide, and we'll analyze whether the pricing is fair and how it compares with the upcoming ECs. And after that, we'll go through the floor plans and the key layout highlights. And finally, we'll end with the comparison between Coastal Cabana EC and Rivelle EC. And I'll share my thoughts on whether you should wait or move ahead with Coastal Cabana. Okay, so whenever we talk about ECs, we often refer back to an article by then Minister Khaw Boon Wan. So he actually described ECs as kind of a Singaporean luxury, and he kind of likened them to buying a Lexus at Toyota Corolla pricing. So in other words, EC buyers were getting a private condo product at a significantly discounted entry price. He also mentioned that developers were building very large units, and because of that, many buyers ended up making very substantial profits. So to sum it up, ECs were designed as a very favorable scheme for Singaporeans, and that's why you've seen EC launches performing consistently well over the years. Okay, so why are ECs still so highly sought after today? For most people buying their first home, or for HDB upgraders, ECs are a very good stepping stone. So the main reason is the big price gap between an EC and a new private condo in the same area. Okay, so let's take an example from earlier this year. So Aurelle EC in Tampines launched and sold out very quickly. And the average PSF was 1767 per square foot. And just a short walk away, we had Parktown Residence by Aurelle, which launched at an average of 2369 per square foot. And that's about a $700 per square foot price gap between the EC and the private condo. So if you're lucky enough to buy Aurelle EC, your neighbor in the private condo just across the road would now be transacting $100 per square foot more than you. So the chances of you eventually selling at around $2,000 to $2,200 per square foot next time looks entirely feasible. So we saw the same pattern in the west side. So projects like Novo Place EC launched at an average of 1654 per square foot. And nearby private launches like Sora and Jayden were selling at 2204 and 2475 per square foot respectively. So again, you see a $600 to $800 per square foot price gap. So when you enter an EC at this kind of discount to the private market, it's not hard to understand why ECs tend to perform so well. So now let's look at how life-changing these numbers can be in reality. So one famous example is 100 Palms EC, which launched around 2017. So back then, there was no e-balloting and the queues literally formed along the roadside. So in the end, the project sold out on the first day, and launch prices were only about $700 to $800 per square foot. Which is very hard to imagine today. So 7 to 8 years later, after the units reach MOP, prices there have moved up to $1,800 to $2,000 per square foot. Some 4 and 5 bedroom owners have made profits of around $1.5 to $1.7 million today, and now most of them can actually comfortably downpay on the landed property, or even use the gains as a retirement fund later if they choose to downsize later on. Alright, another example is Soul Acres EC. So it also launched at around $700 to $800 per square foot. And today owners are exiting with around $600 to $700 per square foot, which translates to around $800K to $900K capital gain for typical 3 and 4 bedroom units. Similarly, in the north, we see the same pattern for the brownstone EC. So there, the owners also experience gains of roughly 600 to 700 PSF, which works around to around 600 to 700k in profit altogether. So when you buy an EC at a significantly discounted entry price compared to neighboring private developments, the chance of you getting a good profit is quite likely. So if you're interested in buying EC, so the next question is, how do you qualify? So let me summarize the main criteria. Okay, so firstly, your combined income needs to be maximum of $16,000. Okay, and of course now it's spread out over 12 months in their assessment. And of course, if you're slightly above this, there may be room to appeal to HDB, but of course, approval is also not guaranteed and has to be justified. ECs are also restricted to first and second timers. Okay, so if you bought from HDB directly or bought a resale flat with grants more than once, you will no longer be eligible. Okay, you must also not own a private property. Okay, or if you used to own one, it must have already been sold for more than 30 months. And finally, you must not own any overseas property. Okay, and of course, Malaysian properties are also counted. Okay, if your situation is a bit complicated or your income is quite close to the limit or over the limit, you can always WhatsApp me and I'll help you do an assessment as well. Okay, so let's clarify how first timers and second timers are defined. So you are considered a first timer, okay, if you have never bought from HDB directly before, or you've never bought a resale flat with grants before. If you are a first timer buying an EC, you may also qualify for CPF housing grants. So for households earning $10,000 or less, okay, you may qualify for a grant of up to $30,000. Okay, and similarly, if you're 10K to 11K, you may qualify for a grant up to $20,000. And from 11 to 12K, it's a grant up to $10,000. And also the interesting thing is that Singaporean citizens with SPR households are also eligible, although SPR households do receive a slightly lower grant amount. And of course, you are considered a second timer, okay, if you bought from HDB or bought a resale with grants only once. But of course, in that case, a resale levy is also payable. So from the table here, we can see that two-room flats have a resale levy of up to 15K, and of course, up to executive flats or ECs that go up to $55,000. Okay, and of course, this resale levy will be deducted from your cash proceeds when you eventually sell your HDB. So it's important to include it in your financial planning. So for most EC launches, 70% of the units are usually allocated for first-timers during the initial balloting period, and only 30% of the total units are allocated to second-timers. So because of this, many second-timers usually end up disappointed, and because a large portion of EC demand actually comes from second-timers usually. But for Coastal Cabana, okay, it will be a special case because the sale day is 1 month after the preview period. And because of this launch structure, there will be no separate quota for first-timers and second-timers on booking day. So in other words, as a second-timer, if you are now on equal footing with first-timers, and your chances are significantly better than in recent EC launches. Okay, so let's move on to the different payment schemes for ECs. So there are two main options, the normal payment scheme, okay, and the deferred payment scheme. So under the normal payment scheme, you pay 5% cash on booking day, and then the other 15% BSD and legal fee, and they're all payable within about 9 weeks thereabouts. And then, of course, after that, the rest of the payments are due immediately or progressively after the 15% is paid. So that's usually when the foundation, concrete framework, and all the other stages of construction are finished, and up to the notice of vacant possession where you collect keys. Okay, this is a bit different from the deferred payment scheme, because for the deferred payment scheme, okay, same thing, you pay 5% and 15% plus the BSD and legal fees within the first 9 weeks, but all the remaining payments of the remaining 80% are actually deferred and payable only much closer to TOP. So in other words, right, this allows you to buy the EC first without having to sell your HDB first. So you don't have to rent or stay with your in-laws in the interim. And there's also this facility called the Deferred Bridging Loan, which is particularly useful for second-timers choosing the deferred payment scheme. So this loan allows you to recognize some of the equity locked up in your existing HDB, okay, and use it to support your EC purchase. So it is offered by the main banks, okay, like UOB, OCBC, and DBS, and can help you reach up to an 80% loan-to-value in total altogether. So for banks like UOB and OCBC, the formula used is 90% of your HDB's valuation minus the outstanding loan amount. So I'll highlight the formula over here. So this might sound a bit technical, so we'll have a simple example next to illustrate. Okay, so let's take a case study of a couple, Jack and Janet. So they are both 38 years old, and they own a BTO 4-room in Tampines North. Okay, and they've already met their MOP. Their HDB is currently valued at $680,000, and their HDB has an outstanding loan of $150,000. So now their goal is to buy a 3-bedroom, 915 square feet at Coastal Cabana, that is priced at $1.65 million. And take note that is DPS pricing. Okay, and they do not want to sell their HDB first. Okay, they want to see if they're able to purchase Coastal Cabana and sell the HDB closer to the key collection. So they have a few key questions. Okay, firstly, can they buy? And how much CPF and cash do they need on hand? Okay, so now let's look at their financials. So Jack, okay, as mentioned, he's 38 years old. Okay, he has a monthly income of $10,000. Okay, and just for example purposes, we assume no bonus. And he has a car loan of $1,000 and a credit card liability of $100. Janet is also 38 years old. She has a monthly income of $4,800. Okay, and she has a credit card liability of $100. So if we take a look at their maximum loan, okay, based on their income, okay, their max loan, which is 75% of the purchase price, okay, amounts to $878,846. Of course, if we look at this loan amount on its own, it's actually not enough to reach the 1.65 mil as a total purchase price. So, and this is where the deferred bridging loan will come in. So now let's calculate the deferred bridging loan. So using the formula of 90% okay, of the HDB valuation, and we less off the outstanding loan, that will be 90% times 680K less off 150K. So that will eventually amount to $462,000 for the deferred bridging loan amount. And of course, if we take the $878,000 okay, for the mortgage loan and add up with their deferred bridging loan, it adds up to around $1.34 million, which will be up to 80% of the purchase price. Okay, of course, we see that 80% of 1.65 million, okay, the estimated price for Coastal Cabana will be 1.32 million. So in totality, they actually qualify for 80% LTV because this is more than this. So if these numbers still sound a bit confusing, don't worry too much. You can also WhatsApp me and I can always run through the figures with you. So now let's look at the down payment needed. So for a 1.65 mil purchase price, okay, after the 5% cash, 15% cash and CPF, buyer's stamp duty, legal fee, the total amount ends up to be $385,300. Okay, and if Jack and Janet have $150,000 okay, in their CPF available, this means that the eventual remaining cash on hand needed will be $235,300. Okay, so with this, if they have this cash amount on hand, they will be able to buy Coastal Cabana's 3-bedder at $1.65 million without needing to sell the HDB first. Okay, so next, let's move on to the location of Coastal Cabana and some quick facts about the project. So on the location map, Coastal Cabana is the area highlighted in brown. Okay, so with the immediate radius, there are already many amenities just across the road. Okay, so we also have E-Hub, we have Downtown East, Wild Wild Wet. Of course, if you go enjoy the chalets, the resort is just behind. Okay, of course, I think the one thing that is really nice about Coastal Cabana is that just a short walk down the stretch here, we have Pasir Ris Park nearby, and we have the beach within the close vicinity as well. So I think this is really rare and special because I think Singapore is already very stressful, right? From work and all. It's very nice to come back home to a very nice, relaxing environment like this. There are also several primary schools nearby. Okay, we have Pasir Ris Primary, we have Casuarina Primary, and also Elias Primary within the vicinity. Of course, Pasir Ris Central is very close by as well. So we have the malls like White Sands, and then of course we have the newly built Pasir Ris Mall as well. So of course they're having Pasir Ris MRT, but there's also an important upcoming enhancement, okay, which is the Cross Island Line over here. So the Cross Island Line is a major MRT project that will run from Jurong Town Hall, okay, and cut across the central north area across to Bright Hill, eventually to Ang Mo Kio, then of course lastly heading towards Pasir Ris area. So this line will definitely greatly improve connectivity across the island and eventually make Pasir Ris even more accessible. So for example, if you travel from Pasir Ris MRT to Punggol today, you need to go through many stations, okay, and make a few interchange changes. So with the Cross Island Line in place, the journey will just be reduced to just 3 direct stops. Similarly, getting to central areas like Ang Mo Kio, Bright Hill will just take 6 to 8 stations via direct train. And on top of that, you also have a direct 4-stop ride to the future Changi Airport Terminal 5, okay, which I would say this level of connectivity will be a real game changer. If you buy into Coastal Cabana now especially, you are effectively taking advantage of this transformation as a first mover. Okay, so now let's run through some of the quick facts about the project itself. Coastal Cabana has 16 blocks in total. Okay, 4 blocks are 11 stories high and 12 blocks are 12 stories high. And the development itself sits on a very big land parcel of more than 300,000 square feet, okay, which is really nice because the developer will be doing lots of nice landscaping and the facilities will be very nicely spaced out as well. And one really nice feature is that we have a 1:1 car park ratio with fully basement parking as well. And this is something that many ECs do not offer today. So it's a strong plus point. So the developers of Coastal Cabana are Qingjian, okay, and 4C Holdings, and they have a solid track record, basically. They have developed projects such as Tenet EC, which just reached its TOP, and of course projects like Altura, successful projects like Jadescape and Foret as well. So here you can see the site plan of the development. So I won't go into every single detail, but I would like to highlight a few key things. So firstly, the land area is very generous, okay, and the developers have used it very well to create substantial landscaping and facilities. I think the nice thing is that they will have two 50-meter pools, a tennis court as well. The central area in the middle here is fairly open, so the blocks are not too close to one another. Okay, and I think this is good because many of the corner stacks, okay, for example, some of the stacks I'll highlight here, they will have some pocket views in the middle of the facilities next time, so it's not totally blocked as well. And many buyers will be drawn to the units facing Jalan Loyang Besar because there is a direction heading towards the sea. However, only a small number of stacks will actually be enjoying the proper sea views, so those units will definitely be limited and high demand. Okay, and the developer has already said that likely only level 8 and above will be getting the sea views. Okay, so in terms of the unit types, Coastal Cabana offers 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, and 5-bedroom layouts. So the 3-bedders, okay, they range from 872 square feet to 915 square feet. Then we have the 4-bedders, okay, which actually start from 990 square feet and they go up to generally 1163 square feet. And then we have the 5-bedroom premiums, okay, 1367 and 1521 square feet. So on paper, some of these sizes may look slightly smaller compared to, say, the older projects. But do note that this is a GFA harmonized project, so areas like aircon ledgers are not factored into the unit size. So now let's talk about the pricing for Coastal Cabana and whether it makes sense or not. So the developer purchased the land for Coastal Cabana at $729 per square foot per plot ratio. So based on that, the starting prices are around $1.438 million. Okay, that's for the 3-bedroom deluxe. And about $1.623 million, okay, or $1,639 per square foot for the 4-bedroom units. So this is a table that breaks down the starting prices for each unit type based on $1,650 per square foot and upwards up to $2,000. So many buyers will be asking, okay, what is a comfortable per square foot assumption for their calculations? So in my view, a reasonable and conservative working figure would be around 1850 per square foot. Okay, and there's a good reason for that, which we'll see from the next example. Okay, so here we have Aurelle EC again. Okay, so the land price was at $721 per square foot per plot ratio, which is very similar to Coastal Cabana's $729 per square foot. So when we look at Aurelle's launch pricing, okay, it transacted from around 1650 per square foot, average at 1767, and then going up to 1882 per square foot. Okay, so these are some of the units that have reached as the maximum for this project so far transacted. Okay, so with a similar land cost, the market was prepared to accept this kind of price range. So for Coastal Cabana, even though the land cost is similar, we cannot simply assume that the developer will also copy the same prices, okay? Because this is the only EC launching in the East this period, and EC supply is in general is very limited in totality. So eventually the developer may decide to launch slightly higher simply because they can. Okay, so we have to see based on the launch prices itself. Okay, we should also compare Coastal Cabana with upcoming EC sites. So, as mentioned earlier, Coastal Cabana's land price is at $729 per square foot per plot ratio. The upcoming EC plots at Senja and Woodlands, okay, they will bid at $771 and $782 per square foot, respectively. So, if we take in terms of percentage, it's roughly around 5 to 6% higher in land costs. So, I would say that Coastal Cabana is likely to be the last chance to enter this pricing tier before the future ECs, especially in more outskirt locations, okay, may step up to an even higher price level. Okay, so now let's take a closer look at the floor plans. So I'll summarize the main points instead of going through every detail. Okay, so for the 3 bedrooms, okay, we have the 3-bedroom deluxe, okay, at 872 square feet, okay, types C1A and C1B. These are essentially mirror images of each other, okay, with efficient, squarish common bedrooms. You have 9 square meters for the bedroom sizes, which is a very good size. Both also have enclosed kitchens, okay, and a bomb shelter, okay, for both, which is very useful for storage. Okay, so the next tier is the 3-bedroom premium layouts, which is the type C2 and the type C3. So type C2 has a third WC at the yard over here, okay, next to the yard area. And then they also have a small study alcove along the corridor, okay, and it's around 1 square meter. Type C3, okay, on the other hand, is a 3-bedroom plus study at 915 square feet, okay, and this will be the show flat layout. So the study here is a proper 4 square meter study space, okay, that you can eventually also next time, if you wish, combine it with the master bedroom next time, because the wall here is actually hackable. Okay, the trade-off is that there will be no third bathroom at the yard area, but some families in their view also they do not fully utilize their WC in the end. So for most people, this layout still works very well, and this is after all the show flat layout. So this will likely be the most popular one, okay, that people will go for. So for 4 bedrooms, we can roughly classify them into 2 groups. So the first group consists of the smaller size 4-bedders, okay, type D1, D2, and D3, okay, starting at 990 square feet. So D1 and D2 are quite similar, okay, with the main difference being that bedroom 4, okay, one of them is 7 square meters, and the other type D2, the bedroom 4 is at 8 square meters. Okay, so the first one probably can only fit a single bed, the second one can fit a queen. Okay, D3, on the other hand, the 1055 square feet D3, it comes with also additional dry kitchen area, okay, which is a nice feature if you like to entertain. Okay, and of course, the bedroom 4 is also 9 square meters. Okay, the second group of 4-bedders consists of the larger 4-bedders, which is the type D4, D4B, and also the D5. D4 and D4B come with a study room that sits near the master bedroom, okay, over here, for these two. Okay, similar to the concept in the 3+ study. In the type D4B, okay, the master bedroom also has an additional balcony over here. So type D5 is a little different. It does not have a study room near the master, but it offers a flexi space, okay, that is near the living area. Okay, you can use this as a study, or if you like, you can just leave it open to create a wider, more spacious living and dining area. And next, of course, the 5 bedrooms. Both layouts are quite similar, all have 9 square meter common bedrooms, okay, for the front-facing ones over here. And then the bedroom at the back is at 8 square meters. The only difference between this one, okay, and these two are actually that type E2 will have the balcony extended to the bedroom 4. Okay, so type E2 will have a 14 square meter balcony, and type E1 has a 9 square meter balcony. Okay, so now this brings us to the golden question. Okay, with Coastal Cabana launching now, should you wait for Rivelle EC instead? Okay, so this is a question many buyers have been asking. So ultimately, whether you should wait is a very personal decision. Okay, for example, if you are a very strong Tampines supporter, okay, your family, your parents, your in-laws are all in Tampines, okay, and you really do not like Pasir Ris as a location, then of course, by all means, wait for Rivelle EC. It will make more sense for you. However, if you are relatively neutral between both locations, I will be more proactive rather than wait. So let's revisit Aurelle EC as a case study. So during launch, there were 1771 applications for just 760 units altogether. And about 480 units were eventually sold to first-timers and 280 units were sold to second-timers. Okay, this means in total, there are 1,011 buyers, disappointed buyers that did not manage to secure a unit. Okay, and these buyers are still out there waiting for the next suitable EC. And today this number is probably even higher because more HDBs have reached their MOP and more people have seen how profitable ECs can be. So I'll say that when the odds are so tight, okay, if you are neutral between Pasir Ris and Tampines, I would strongly recommend at least putting in a ballot for Coastal Cabana first, and then deciding later based on your queue number and of course the pricing. So we also need to look at the land pricing between the two ECs. So Rivelle's EC's land was purchased at $768 per square foot per plot ratio. And as mentioned earlier, Coastal Cabana's land was purchased at $729 per square foot. Okay, so this means that roughly, Rivelle altogether is 5.3% higher in land costs. Okay, so this will already increase the developer's base cost by this margin. So this would strongly suggest that Rivelle EC will on average sell at higher prices than Coastal Cabana. So if you're quite price sensitive, you may find yourself eventually paying significantly more per square foot at Rivelle for say the same size unit at Coastal Cabana. Okay, or for example, you might even have to downsize from a 4-bedder at Coastal Cabana to a 3-bedder at Rivelle just to stay within budget. So I'll say again, if you're quite neutral or semi-neutral about the location, I'll say it still makes a lot of sense to submit a ballot for Coastal Cabana and just see the queue number that you will get. And I'll say, last point, we'll also just compare the locations a bit more directly. So Rivelle EC okay, is actually located in Tampines, of course. Okay, it's occupying this land plot over here. And of course, it's situated in Tampines, which is one of the more established mature towns in Singapore. Okay, I think the really big upside here is that it's really close to Tampines West MRT, which is the downtown line, which is really convenient next time if you frequently go to town or city area. Okay, however, I'll say in the immediate surroundings of Rivelle, okay, you'll find many HDB blocks, okay, fewer amenities. Again, there's no really big mall or lifestyle amenities around the vicinity. But of course, there's Safra nearby. Okay, and Bedok Reservoir is also close by if you enjoy your evening runs and walks. Okay, so I'll say there are still some nice lifestyle elements. So overall, it's a comfortable and familiar environment with strong MRT connectivity, but not many large amenities. Now, if we compare that with Coastal Cabana, so as mentioned earlier, right, from Coastal Cabana, just an immediate 500-meter radius, there are so many things. We've got Downtown East, E-Hub, Wild Wild Wet, the beach, the park, okay, the coastal walkway, and then of course, with all this mix of retail, F&B, entertainment, and nature, okay, all within 5 minutes, I would say it's something really nice to have, okay, compared to Rivelle's location. And you also eventually have the advantage of the upcoming Cross Island line, which we discussed earlier. Okay, and that will bring also improved connectivity with a direct link to Changi Airport next time. Okay, so if you're someone who values all these amenities and nature right at your doorstep, I would say Coastal Cabana will tick many boxes. Tampines, of course, remains a very strong mature estate, so it's not really about one being good or one being bad, but it's about eventually what lifestyle and environment you prefer. So now we've come to the end of this video, so I hope you found this breakdown of ECs as well as the comparison between Coastal Cabana and Rivelle useful. Okay, so if you have questions about EC eligibility, grants and loan, it can be quite technical and every household is different. So if you like a personalized assessment or EC eligibility check, feel free to scan the WhatsApp code on the screen and drop me a message. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss future analysis. Okay, thanks for watching. See you for the next one. Bye-bye.